So I'm here with Jason Jackson, one of the founders of Tahwahkaro Distilling in Grapevine, Texas. Thank you for having me out. I'm intrigued by the name, first of all. What little we've had before we started this filming has been fantastic, so I look forward to learning a little bit more about that. So thanks for having me out.
You bet. Thanks for being here. The name came from the distillery trying to tie ourselves into the local history of Grapevine, and we really just are sort of frontier-esque, old school guys that really enjoy Texas history. And so Tahwahkaro stands for, in the Caddo Indian language, kind of a paragraph synonymous with a geographic region, excuse me. So Tahwahkaro Creek is just here east of town and right by the airport. And now it's called Grapevine Creek. Was the area in 1843 where the Indian Treaty was signed to end the Indian Wars with the 10 tribes in the area. Yep. And so right there on the creek is where that peace treaty was actually signed. Sam Houston was there, and this was actually during the days of the state of Texas was a republic.
Ah, okay.
In 1843. So we wanted to tie the name to Grapevine, but also tie it to Texas history, because we really enjoy that period of history and kind of the raw frontier, all those fun things that go into that.
Well, so that's a super cool fact, and I mean, I didn't know that. I mean, as growing up in Texas, you are inundated with Texas history, and I guess that's not something we ever learned. We didn't get into the specifics about, what the creeks and the things where things were signed, but it's a great little tie-in, and I think something that's super cool. And I will tell you, whenever I first heard the name, I couldn't figure out how to pronounce it. It took you telling me how to pronounce it to really get it down. But once I figured it out, it hadn't been an issue.
Yeah.
But now that I know the history behind it, I think that adds another level of cool factor to it.
Yes.
And so,
and I will say it again. It is Tahwahkaro. Tahwahkaro. And it also has a little extra meaning, which we really like as our group of owners here, is Bend in the River.
Bend in the River, okay.
One of the partners, Chris, said the other day, is a great analogy for me to always think about. And I've done this in my life, walking along creeks and hunting and fishing. Like, everyone wants to see what's around the next bend in the river. And I really like that word picture. It's really cool. So that is a loose translation in the Caddo Indian language. Bend in the river is what Tahwahkaro means.
All right, so it's always what's around the next bend for Tahwahkaro.
That's right.
So, all right. Now, y'all are just recently available in select stores.
Correct.
So how long have y'all actually been in business?
The distillery's been around since 2016, so now we're pushing about 3 years.
Okay.
And we've been distilling for, kind of fine-tuning everything for a couple of years
right
now. And we just released about 2 weeks ago to our distributor here in the state of Texas, Republic, and we're just getting the name out. We're out there, talking to all the different facets of who we can distribute it to, the liquor stores, the restaurants, the bars, and just talking about what we do. And we love what we do, and that's really what we're super passionate about, is what we get to do for.
Well, and so I like y'all's whiskey. I mean, I love it. I think it's great. I think there's a unique factor to it because it's one of the few that is a true 4-grain bourbon. So instead of just using, bourbon's 51% corn, and then usually it's rye and barley. But y'all are utilizing wheat, rye, barley, along with the corn. So why did you decide to go the 4-grain route versus just the traditional, let's make a bourbon?
Yeah, great question. Probably starting off something unique. We're all, most of the partners here are all that high rye, big kick, spice bourbon guys. We like those brands that are high rye. We like that flavor profile. So bringing something a little bit different to the market was important, because obviously when you go into a liquor store, there's, hundreds of SKUs on the shelf for bourbon, and we are regulated for bourbon. So the recipe's pretty close across the board. But we wanted to do something a little different. So we took sort of that high rye palette, and actually Justin said, what if we added wheat to this and became a 4-grain? And as soon as we started cooking that grain,
I will tell you, the wheat mellowed out some of that rye in
really
all the
does.
right ways.
It really does. That was exactly what we were looking for. Just something a little bit different. Not to take away from that wonderful pepper and that spice for the rye, which of course adds to the warmth
And
of
there's
the
still
corn.
some of that there.
There is. There
but
has
it's
to be,
not.
yeah.
It's not overpowering. It's not like some of the ones that are really high rye that just kind of hit you in the back of the jaw. It doesn't do that.
Right.
It's just, it's just smooth all the way down.
It really, that's exactly what we were hoping for. Is the wheat really brings an extra characteristic to the bourbon, and we love it.
So, and y'all are bottling it at 96 proof, right?
Correct.
Not so. Why 96 proof versus like an 80 or even cask strength?
Sort of the thought process behind it was we're all cask strength guys. We like that just huge character that comes right out of the barrel. Not every palate is going to be accepting of that just because of the heat coming off the barrel. So 96, as we were kind of doing some due diligence, I guess you could say, to kind of
Right.
find where that sweet spot is. 96 was a really good sweet spot between still holding a lot of character from the mash bill, the barrel, our yeast strain, holding that character as opposed to getting so watered down that you're really just drinking water and there's not really much going on.
Yeah.
Which to us, at the lower proofs, and in a lot of the whiskeys, I think the lower proof, some of them hold it, but the lower proof just didn't really fit what we wanted to do and the
Okay.
experience we wanted out of
right.
a whiskey.
Makes sense. So, how long is this current product aged?
What's your guess?
My guess, I'm guessing a little over a year.
That's correct. Yeah, you hit it on the head.
Now I've probably had a
Did
little.
say
I
that
had
on
a
the
little.
label.
I
think
think
you
I had a
read
little
that.
insider knowledge to that too. But so, which I mean, for the amount of ages, and guys, I mean, this is I think important to say. I mean, look at the color of this right? I mean, this is a nice amber color to it. And that's, you're talking about age just a little over a year, and that is what the Texas climate does to whiskey. You'll see this throughout Texas whiskey is they're really dark in nature, even at a young age, and that's just because of how hot it gets in Texas and how the whiskey interacts with the barrel. So do y'all have, which, congratulations by the way for getting a young whiskey out and it's still tasting good. Do y'all have plans to age stuff longer?
Absolutely, we do. Yeah, and for a 13-month-old bourbon, which is what we're drinking today, we're extremely pleased by how complex it is, how well-rounded it is, and even our cooperages are telling us we use a 30-gallon number 4 char that even in the smaller barrels, the mid-sized barrels, which a lot of distilleries are using today, especially craft ones, you really don't even want to go past 18 months, maybe even 2 years. This is what the cooperages are telling us. And some do, some don't. Which I love about whiskey. It really is what your palate likes and what you like to see. We're really excited that, as you said, we get this big color, we get this big character at about 13 months in what we're releasing. And long story short, we are hoping for that straight label. We are hoping for that bonded label at some point as we up production and we get to store some whiskeys back for a few more years and see what happens. It's going to be a really fun thing.
And you'll
to see.
find your sweet spot. I mean, you'll find what age does that and what makes sense. And it's funny that there's a lot of whiskeys in Texas that won many awards that are 18 months to 24 months max age, and that's simply because of the climate. And one of the things we talked about, before we started this filming, is how much the climate has effect on what gives the flavor of whiskey. I mean, you can look at Scotland and the regions. I mean, it's all distilled the same way. It's all barley, but because of the regions and all that, it affects the flavor of it. Well, Texas is no different. I mean, where your warehouse is, where you store it, and all that's going to affect the flavor and the aging, how long you need to age it. And so I'm excited for the 2 year with the straight whenever it comes out. The bottled and bond I think will be great. 4 years, we'll see. But I mean, who knows? Maybe 4 years is too long.
You're right.
We just don't know.
That's the fun thing about making whiskey. We're going to find out.
Right, exactly, and that is what makes this a fun process. So, all right, where y'all just recently distributed. So where are you at? Where are you available?
So as of today, and you want like chains and all
No,
that?
well, I mean, chains are fine, but just
Sure.
states or city. I mean, say Texas, obviously, but
Yeah.
cities, whatever.
We're available in the DFW area. We're available in East Texas. We actually have on plans in the next weeks to market heavily Houston, Austin.
Okay.
We are going to go for a statewide presence here to start.
Right.
And then at some point in the business plan is a regional approach as well, and probably some overseas. I mean, down the road. Of course,
Oh,
but
nice. Overseas.
We want
Okay.
to really get the whiskey in people's homes in Texas. I mean, this is where it started. We're biased, of course. We feel like we're doing a really good job at providing a great quality spirit for a small craft guy. We do make every single drop of this in this
I
facility.
was going to say that's one thing important
Yeah.
to note is that y'all are doing this from a grain to glass.
Grain to
y'all
glass, yeah.
are milling the grain here, which I went and visited the mill and next door and saw how y'all are doing that. And I saw the fermenters, the distill. I mean, y'all are doing it all here in house, 100%. And so I think that's important to know, and I think that's important for people to understand is that. This is a Texas product. Now, y'all are using mostly Texas grains, but not 100%. Depending on
that's
what it
exactly
is.
Yeah, and we're not going to ever be a company that tries to I want to say sort of correctly, we're going to be very upfront about everything that we do.
Transparent.
We want to be very transparent. So we source wheat and rye, the raw grains, and our malted rye comes from the state of Texas. We can certify that with our supplier. The corn we do buy from a Texas co-op. I can't say
It's
that
coming from a co-op.
the
Yeah,
corn
I gotcha.
maybe comes in on a train from somewhere. I can't say
Right.
that, and I'm either way.
Yeah.
I'm spending money on the co-op here in the state, and we're supporting local.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I don't want to ever be like, oh, it's 100% this, and then we have to turn around down the road and someone
only
goes,
thing
well,
we
that's
can-
not true. You're getting
Wow.
it wherever. We are paying money for the co-op to.
But
for
the one thing
corn.
we can verify is that it's 100% distilled on site
Absolutely,
here in Grapevine,
Yep.
Texas.
That's
so
correct.
that is.
and that's important to us.
It is, and I mean I can understand that, and it's important to a lot of distillers to control that process.
Yeah.
It allows you to truly create the product you want to create.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, and that does touch on 3 of the grains since we're 4.
Oh,
The
yeah,
malted
sorry.
barley.
Yes.
We actually do buy from a big beer supplier, and that grain does not on the label on the
Yeah.
bag that you would see in the shop if you were to come in. I think it's Wisconsin or somewhere up there. But malted barley, according to what we've heard, is pretty tough to grow, or barley is pretty tough to grow in Texas, and until we can find a good barley supplier, we would love to entertain. If there are any out there, we'd love to talk to you about
Well, reach out.
supplying a malted barley to Tahwahkaro, because it's important for us to support Texas.
right, and you're right, and I think you're doing that. I mean, you are, whether it's through a co-op or whatever, but you're doing everything here in Texas, and you're supporting that, and you've produced a great whiskey. I think there's other things to come, and we're gonna do, from what I've got to taste earlier, there's other great things to come, and so, anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys. I'm here with Jason Jackson from Tahwahkaro Distilling in Grapevine, Texas. They are going to be at the 2019 Texas Whiskey Festival, so be sure to stop by, check them out. Until then, we're going to share more information about them. But until then, peace out.